Welcome back to the shop. I don't have much of a metalworking project today. I've been running around all week and really haven't had much time to think of anything. I have a couple of projects I think I do want to get to, which maybe we'll save for next week. But so this week I wanted to talk a little bit about books, and books about metalworking for somebody just beginning. Books where they're going to get a lot of information. Now I have about 6 here and some magazines and stuff that I think are pretty good. Actually, some of these are bad, and I'm going to explain the bad ones, or the ones that I don't particularly like. And some of the other ones that I don't have, that I don't particularly like, that I've seen that are available at a retailer like Barnes & Noble that I actually looked at and said, there's not really much here. So I'll try to shy you away for some of the more expensive books that don't give you much, and some of the really cheap books give you a lot of information. So we'll go through those. But first, before I go through those, I was cleaning up the lathe of all that cast iron dust and all those, all the nasties off of there from the last project we did. And I actually physically took the carriage off just because it's just basically two screws in the front and 2 bolts in the back that hold it on. And I wanted to make sure that there was no cast iron dust stuck up underneath the carriage there. It takes 2 seconds to pop it off, wipe it down, 2 seconds to pop it back on. And I realized one thing that I never talked about, and I never talked about the saddle gibs on the back. And we'll go over to the lathe and show them to you. Now, the reason why those are important is I think they're the most forgotten about thing on the lathe, or most forgotten about adjustment on the lathe. And I think a lot of the beginners' bad finishes in partly come from this gib that is not adjusted correctly. So let's set up on the lathe real quick just so I can show you what I'm talking about. I actually set up with a bird's eye view here, and I think that everybody or most people know that there are actually a set of gibs in the compound here and in the cross slide on the side here, and these are just regular straight gibs. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 4 adjustment screws on the top on the compound and 4 adjustment screws on the cross slide, and basically that pushes a hardened piece of metal into the dovetail. And what that's for is to make up for wear in that actual dovetail, and to keep the compound and the cross slide tight as you go in. Now, maladjusted gibs will do a bunch of things on you. It'll throw your finishes off. It can even give you hard spots when you crank it in. And a lot of times, gib adjustments are kind of subjective to the person. Some people like to run theirs really tight. Some people like to run theirs on a little looser. The way I set these is it's really hard to take these screws out, so to get a feel for it. So what I did is, I mean, if you can just grab the compound and wiggle it a little bit, I basically tightened the screws until I got no wiggle or movement out of the compound and the cross slide here, and then just slightly backed off, just a hair on each screw, and made sure I wasn't binding anywhere. I made sure everything feels okay, and this is where I like to keep it. The compound here is a little tighter than the cross slide, and the reason for that is when I did the mod for this, there were bearings in here that were never in the I don't even know if they were in the original ones, but there were bearings in here that were never in this lathe before, and a lot of times this is so smooth that a really deep cut can actually back this compound off a little bit. So it was either tighten them up a little bit or make a locking screw where I can lock the gibs, which is a little narrowed screw if I wanted to. So these are a little tight, but still plenty of free movement. So like I said, they're there to take up for wear and to basically be able to tighten your machine up. Now, one that gets completely overlooked is the one that's actually on the saddle, which sits behind here. And all it is a straight piece of metal. And that straight piece of metal is held on with 2 bolts. Now on these bolts are usually lock washers. These aren't the ones on mine were missing. I took these. They should be a little bit heavier than this, but these are some smaller ones that I bent with a wider opening. And that gives you some spring, because you don't want to bottom out these screws to get this tight and basically bind your carriage. Now what this gib does on the bottom is what keeps this back of this whole saddle from lifting up. You can see I can lift it up. So they sit down in here. There's one. And there's the other. Now I just have them hand tight because they don't have to be super tight. And the way I adjust those is I'll grab the saddle here and try to lift it off the ways. If I see movement, those need to be tighter. Still have movement. And there, I have no movement. Now feel your carriage and make sure that it's not really sticky. If it is, I'll just back off just a hair here and a hair here. There's still a little bit of movement there, not much, and my carriage is nice and light. Now you can run those as tight as you want for the way your carriage will feel, but I think that's one of the reasons why people get some nasty finishes, especially when parting off, because all of your force is on your tool this way, is pushing down on this side, and it's not necessarily going to want to lift this side up, but if it's really loose, even that pressure down on here is going to want to cause this back to lift a little bit. It might not even be perceptible, but it's going to want to lift up, and like I said, that could cause a ton of issues on parting off, and especially bad finishes, especially on facing. So that's just one thing that you want to check out on your lathe. So I just wanted to point that out. So let's get back to the table over there and start going over what we were originally going to do. Let's talk about the very first book that you should buy. Self Bends, How to Run a Lathe. Now, does it have to be self bends? No. There, I believe, are about three companies that made a version of this. I believe, obviously, Self Bend made one. I know that Atlas made one. I believe Sheldon made one, and possibly Clausing, but don't quote me on those two. But they're kind of along the same lines. And even though it says it's made by a Self Bend lathe company, it has less to do with Self Bend lathe specifically and more to do about machining in general. And what I mean by that, I mean the first few pages. Well, before I even get to that, this used to be available from Lindsay Publishing for like $7. Lindsay is now out of business or has retired. So to get a brand new book, you would have to go to Grizzly, which now owns Self Bend, and they sell it for $14. So for the information in there, it's not a rip-off, but then being able to pay $7 and now having to pay $14 is a rip-off. But you can get this on eBay or any other used bookseller for pretty cheap. This is the one from Grizzly. I had the Lindsay one, and I sent that to Keith Fenner for the toolbox giveaway, the last one. So this is a new version, just so I can show you guys. Now the first, a few pages here, kind of just literature on Self Bend itself. But then you have how to level a lathe, how to check for alignment, how to lace belts, basic operations of a lathe, what lever does what, some speeds, the actual speeds of each different class of self bend contain, and probably the more useful part of this will be the tool grinding, especially for a beginner. How to grind tools and basic angles and what the tools do. Then you have some measuring and stuff, working with face plates, doing the two-collar test, which I have a video of that. Aligning the tailstock, marking centers, how to work between centers. Still how to work between centers, how to offset, how to make offsets. Machining up to shoulders, using the collet closer. Threading, now it has all the tap sizes and stuff for threading. It tells you how to thread, the different formulas for threading, Acme threads, regular threads, and then you know, you get into some kind of specific stuff in here, working with face plates. A lot of this, it has some setting up, different setups and stuff. Lathe and auto service, it's grinding and stuff. You like that? Some mobile tool shop is what that is actually. And how to measure gears, and just all kinds of good information. And then in the very back, it has specifics for the actual south bends themselves, including parts list for different lathes, and also has the actual measurements for different parts of the lathe. So from this, you can get what the measurements of the spindles are, what the actual measurements of the compound T-slots are, and the compound itself is, the dovetails and stuff like that. It's all listed in here. So it's a very, very nice book, and if you're just starting out, this is definitely a book to have. Now these were published up until the, actually it says so on the inside here, was published up until actually 1966 was the last version of this, which I believe this book is based off. I think the Lindsay one is a little bit older. And the original 1914 or 1961 is available online for free in a PDF file. But I like to have the print versions of anything a lot better. So that is a definite book to have that has a lot of information on it. Now, a book that's I didn't particularly find so helpful, but Machine Shop Basics, Odell, this is Odell's Machine Shop Basics. I got this for cheap. I got this at a used bookstore actually for like $5, but if you look at the price in here, it's $30. Is it $30 worth of information in there? For me, no. Why? Because mostly what this is how to use the tools. How to read micrometers, which I already knew, how to read bevel protractors, how to use files, how to use hacksaws, what reamers, you know, what different reamers look like. It's depth gauges and stuff like that. This is grinding, what different grinding wheels are made out of, cutting fluids, what to use on what. Now a lot of this information is really old. This is originally published in the 60s, I believe, was the original version of this. So a lot of this information here is a little on the older side. For aluminum, use the kerosene, brass to machine dry, and it says compound, but it doesn't tell you what compound is anyway. The tool section here is pretty good, but if you have the South Bend How to Run a Lathe book, this is a little redundant. It does have a few more tool shapes in here than the South Bend Lathe book does, but they're funky tool bit shapes that I would never use, to be completely honest with you. And drill bit grinding, which, I mean, yeah, it's nice to look at, nice to know, but can you find it elsewhere? Yes. And let's see what else we got in here. Here's like what the different drill bits look like. So basically, if you're just starting out and you've never seen a machine tool in your life or never seen a tap or anything, this is a good book to get your bearings, to know, you know, what the tools look like, what they're used for, what they do, the different types of you know, tapers and things like that. So if you're just completely starting out, basically with no knowledge of any kind of tools or anything like that, this is definitely a good book to pick up. For me personally, I mean, I knew what most of these tools and everything did. The only good part about this book, for me at least, was the tool bit grinding section, which, like I said, the South Bend Lathe has, and the drill bit grinding section in here, which I still suck at grinding drill bits anyway. So a lot of this information and stuff you can find from watching videos and stuff on the internet. Also, you can with this also, but you know, like I said, this is $14, $5-6 used, and this thing retails for $30. So okay, the next book I have here, and it's not on here just because I like the guy, but a lot of you know Tom Lipton over at Ox Tool Co., and this is his book, Metalworking Doing It Better. He also has another one, Metalworking Sink or Swim. This is his newest one, and I think he explained it on one of his videos that a lot of the other book is in this, and this has some new stuff in here. Now this is written just like one of Tom's videos. This is written just like Tom was sitting there explaining it to you. And there's actually a decent amount of humor and stuff in here too. It's a very, very enjoying read. It's not like reading a textbook. It just isn't. I flew through this book probably in maybe 2 or 3 days, and honestly I did skip. There's a CNC section in here that I skipped because that had nothing to do with me. But it's an excellent book. Now, this isn't a reference book, so you're not going to find any kind of. You might find a few formulas in here. Actually, I'm not quite sure. But in other words, you're not going to find out how to thread or what depth to bore something if you want to put a thread in it or anything like that. This is problems that you will encounter in your shop and ways to get around them and quick ways of setting. There's a lot of really good tips for setting different things up in the milling machine and the lathe. A lot of really good things that probably wouldn't come to mind. The only thing I don't, not that it's a dig, but the only thing that throws me off is right here is a picture of Tom's shop here, and underneath it says a small, well set up hobby shop. Well, that's one hell of a hobby shop. I mean, that's the only thing that threw me off when I was reading that. I was like, hobby shop? What? I mean, you know, I get it. The stuff he's doing at home, he's doing more because he wants to do it and everything else. But I mean, that at least around here, a lot of shops would love to have that amount of space in there. I just gotta say, and you know, those are companies. But anyway. There's just a lot of good stuff, and I'm not going to go through it all, but I mean he has a lot of things of how to draw drawings the correct way so somebody can interpret them, and just tips on doing that. Actually, tips on setting up your shop, different ways to store materials, and things like that. There's a whole we're still in the setting up shop area here. There's a lot of setups for the lathe with different kinds of collets, different kinds of tools, and there's that spring tool holder. I think he showed that on one of his videos. Setups. There's a little backing plate. You've seen him use something similar in his videos there to bump a thin piece out. All different kinds of ways to set things up, and a lot of really good things in here. Just, like I said, there's a lot of same things on the milling machine and things like that. I believe there's some sign tables stuff in here. Here's the CNC stuff, which, like I said, for a hobby person like me is a little over, you know, outside my realm. The CNC lathe, welding stuff. If you do a lot of welding, there's a lot of good tips and tricks in here, and you know, a little bit more of an explanation of flame straightening, which I think is an art, absolute art. I have no idea how that works, but. You also have here's actually the section on this on flame straightening, which I think, like I said, is just how you can take something that's just way out around, add a little bit of heat here, a little bit of heat here, and that thing comes out perfectly straight. It's pretty amazing. There's also sheet metal work in here, and a lot of grinding stuff. And it's just a very good book. And like I said, it's an enjoyable read. You find a lot of things in here that he has come across, especially on the setups for the lathe and things like that, and just little tools and things to get around some crazy problems you might come into contact with. There are a lot of good ideas and good things in this book. And like I said, it's a real easy read. It's written in a conversational tone. It's not like he's a teacher. It's not like he's trying to, you know, he's a teacher hanging over you. He's just talking to you like I said, like he's standing right in front of you. And it's so far, at least after this one here, which taught me the basics, this is definitely the best metalworking book I've read. And I'm not just saying that, like I said, because I watched the guy's videos or anything like that, but it really is. There's another book out there. I actually think it's just called Tips and Tricks, Metalworking Tips and Tricks, something like that. It's like $45, and I picked it up. It was actually right next to this at Barnes & Noble, and I picked that up and flipped through it, and 99% of that stuff that's in there is common sense, and it's written in steps like tip number 1, tip number 2, tip number 3. If you see that one, and just don't go anywhere near it. Yeah, if you have a local Barnes & Noble, go there. Mine had it on the shelf. Take a look at that one, and you'll see exactly what I mean compared to this. And this is an excellent, excellent book. So now we're gonna go to the next book, but I gotta get it out. But I want to show you something first. Over here, and in case anybody didn't know, on these 11 drawer toolboxes, this center drawer is meant to hold the Machinery's handbook. It holds it vertical. I'm trying to do this with one hand here. Also, even on the Kennedys, that center drawer is meant to hold it too. It holds it like that. So now let's go over to the bench and we'll take a peek at it. Okay, so that book I obviously pulled out was Machinery's Handbook, and this is the 12th edition, which was from 1943. I'm pretty sure I just had this out in the last video. Yeah, I did, because I had to look up some numbers. And this one here came from Detroit, and it came from somebody working in the Chrysler plant. Now, and I'm probably going to get flack for this, whatever you do, this should not be the first book you buy. Alright? Yes, this is the Bible for machinery, but if you're just starting out, this is going to confuse the crap out of you. Only buy this once you kind of get the basics down. Because if you try to look through this and try to either learn something or you know, learn how to thread, you're not going to find it in here. Basically, what this book is a reference book. So this is basically the encyclopedia of machinery is what this is. This is not gonna tell you how to do something. This is not gonna tell you how to thread. This is not gonna tell you how to grind a tool. But what it will tell you is the correct diameter of bore to put a thread in, the correct angles for a specific tool that you want to do, a specific size for a press fit, things like that. And especially for the home hobbyist, there's a lot of information in here that you're never going to use. For the hobbyist, probably the most important thing in here would be the threading data, and second to that, probably press fits and maybe gears if you're doing a lot of gears and stuff like that. But other than that, a lot of this, for at least the home hobbyist, is a lot of information that you're not going to use. Actually, for the first 300 pages here is pretty much math equations, because they didn't have scientific calculators in here. And there's actually a section in here that's how to read a slide rule. But there's a lot of tensile strength of ropes, of wire ropes and stuff like that, and springs, in characteristics of lubricants and what to use it for, and things like that. So I mean, like I said, a lot of this you're not gonna, as a hobbyist, you're not gonna use. So you're not gonna use really. You're not gonna run into a lot of bevel gears. You're not gonna use any kind of dynamometers or anything like that. You're not gonna use any helical gears, which are pretty much in transmissions and things like that. You're not gonna be cutting anything like that. Belts and pulleys you might run into. Rope transmission, chain transmissions, you're not going to run into speeds and feeds. That's a decent section for speeds and feeds. Here's your tool grinding section. It's not going to tell you how to cut a tool, but it's going to label what the actual different facets of the tool are called and what they should be for cutting what different kinds of materials, and how to... Yeah, see, helical milling, you're not going to be doing that. High-speed balancing, you're not going to be doing that. Forming tools, threading, thread cutting, tapers. So like I said, a lot of this you're not going to be using. The most important things in here for the home hobbyist are probably the threading data, maybe some of the tapers and things like that. It is absolutely a good reference to have, but if you don't know what you're looking for, this book isn't going to help you, and you're not going to know what you're looking for in here until you know at least the basics. So that's kind of the basic books that I have read that have helped me along, and a lot of the stuff I've read obviously has been on the internet, but what I want to go through right now is a couple of project books that I have that are actually pretty good, that I like, and some periodicals, and then we'll talk about websites. So one of them is this is a project book. It's by Harold Hall. It's called Metal Lathe for Home Machinist. Now I'm pretty sure this is the same exact book under the Model Engineers Workbook or something like that. Search Harold Hall and he has another book that's under a different name from the UK, and it's pretty much the same thing, I'm almost positive. So this is a newer print edition. The pages on this are really nice. This is $13, so the book is relatively inexpensive, and it has like, we have some explanation of some tools and stuff that you're gonna need and thing in here, and then you have different kinds of projects here, and some of these are pretty good projects, especially if you're just starting out and you don't know what to do. These are definitely some good projects. I haven't done any of these though. So you have a surface gauge. Yeah, what else you got? Precision squares, so it's cylindrical squares, basically what that is. So that's a really good project to get down your diameters really good and get flat surfaces. Is making a test bar, which is kinda almost the same way that I did it. It's a little bit different, but it's kinda along the same ideas. Making your own hole gauges, a little plug gauge set, go no go gauge set that you can make. Now the only problem with this book here is all these measurements are in metric. This was written over in England, so all these are metric measurements in here, so you do have to be aware of that. This is a tailstock die holder set, precision tapers, screw jacks. There's making your own scissor knurl using the faceplate. So everything in here is using just the lathe to do it. None of this here is using any kind of milling machine. This is actually a project in here is to make the arbor and stuff for a little tool post mounted milling spindle there. But it's definitely a good book. For 12 bucks, it's definitely something. If you're really stuck for different kinds of projects, it's definitely something to look into. Now another book here I have. This is by Tubal Cain, and no, it's not Mr. Pete. This is Tubal Cain. He was British, and I believe he is dead now. I'm almost positive he is. And this is about steam engines. Now, this is pretty good. This is a nice little book. It steps you up in difficulty, and this actually goes over boiler making, so it actually shows you how to make the boilers in addition to the little engines. The only thing, this is all in imperial measurements. The only issue I have with this book is these plans in here look like old blueprints. I don't know if you can see the way they look. They look like old blueprints, so if you're not used to reading any kind of blueprints or anything like that, these are a bit tricky to read. There's a lot of measurements on there and a lot of information on one diagram, so it's very easy to get confused. That's kind of my only glitch with this book here. Obviously I haven't built anything in here, but it goes through 3 or 4 different engines and actually shows you how to build your own steam crane also. Let me see, there's a picture of it in here somewhere. That. So if you're into steam engines or anything like that, it's definitely a little book to look into. I did have another one that stepped you up in increments from literally making one out of a jar up until making your own little steam train. I can't remember where I put that. I can't find the book, but that book is also good. So let's see if this has a price on this here. No, this doesn't have a price on here. I think I got this off of Amazon for like $5. I got this super cheap too. The other thing you got is periodicals. Now, I don't subscribe to any of these magazines. They are available at Barnes & Noble, and I do flip through them every month. I go to Barnes & Noble like once a month to take a peek at different magazines and stuff. And there's an article or something in there I like. I do pick it up. And these are 3 of them. So we got Home Shop Machinist, Machinist Workshop and Model Engineers Workshop. There is also a Digital Machinist geared towards CNC stuff. Now these two are American, so this is $5.50, this is $6.25, and this is out of the UK here, and this one is $9.75 from Barnes & Noble. Now you can actually see the difference in the format here. The actual British one here is bigger. Now these have a lot of articles and stuff on the very, very small machines, like the Harbor Freight style 9x20s and 7x14s and things like that. Has a lot of small machines and a lot of different articles in here. Some of them are machine rebuilding. Actually, one of these, I think it was Machinist Workshop, possibly did a whole issue on scraping. This one here, the Home Shop Machinist one I have here, there's a reason why I picked this up. I can't remember. I think partially because I had a half of another article I was reading in one of the other ones. Oh yeah, the little Henry Ford's engine. It had the second half of that, which I have in another edition. But this one had, I'm trying to remember what else I had in here that I liked. It could have been just that. Here's a little bit of scraping in a compound. And different things. Like I said, this cutting keyways, how to cut keyways, different ways to cut keyways. And it goes from basics from anything up to 2. So basically you have like basics like using a depth mic to building engines. So these things run the gamut of different things. That's why I don't subscribe to them, because some of the articles I might not like. Let me see, there was something that was super complicated in here, I forget what it was. Where is it? Oh yeah. So you have something like, you have an article of using a depth micrometer, and you have another one here of making a clutch for a Myford lathe, a automatic threading clutch. So like I said, you run the gamut of difficulty in this. Now, same thing with the Machinist Workshop here. There's a lot of different articles in there. A lot of this runs a gamut from, it's these guys making slap hammers. This is a hardware store, steam engines made with door closers. Making a bender. And I believe this Machinist Workshop has gunsmithing articles in the back also. Model Engineers Workshop is kind of the same idea. This is a little bit more geared towards building of different things here. You can see a lot of this is, like I said, geared toward also smaller lathes. So this is a 9x20. He's modifying with a new motor. But what caught my eye in this article, there was this one here, adding a gear train to a Unimat lathe. And the one that really caught my eye in this magazine in particular was an article right here, making your own live center for your tailstock. So, I mean, this also runs the gamut. If you're looking for projects, take a peek at them on the magazine racks. Like I said, I don't subscribe to them, but if I see an article in there that I like, I do pick them up from time to time. As far as websites go, there's a whole bunch of them out there, and that's a huge place. But some of the more popular ones are forums, and you can go to places like practicalmachinist.com or hobbymachinist.com, and they have a lot of information on there, anything from general machinery to electrical problems in your shop, to actual specific machine forums. Now, Practical Machinist is kind of geared more towards the people that are actually in the trade. The one thing that they don't do is they don't tolerate any discussion on smaller home shop equipment. So some of the kind of verboten subjects are anything about Atlas or Craftsman lathes and shapers and things like that. The Chinese import lathes, the small hobby lathes like 9x20s and 7x14s, there's no discussion of those over there. But there is a very, very good self-bend forum over there. A lot of good guys on there. It's actually moderated by Brad Jacob, who's a basement shop guy here on YouTube. I'm pretty sure I've shown you his channel before. Who he has a 13 or 16 inch self-bend lathe that he has. Can't remember. He also has a self-bend drill press. Pretty much it's actually a newer one than mine. His the depth stop is the cam one. It's not the plain clamp around the quill one like mine is. But you know, if you have a problem with a self-bend lathe or something like that, ask a question and I can guarantee you'll get an answer there. Another good place is Hobby Machinist. Like I said, that's kind of geared more towards the hobbyists. They also have they're also big into the more smaller hobbyist machines, so you can ask a lot of questions about the 7x10s and the 9x20s and the smaller import lathes. There's also Yahoo groups for each specific machine, from anything up from a self-bend up to a closing, and there are also a lot of projects to find on there. Gadgetbuilder.com is also a very, very, very good place for projects. He just has one of those little, I think it's a 7x12. I'm almost positive he made bigger. It's an excellent, excellent site. Has a lot of different projects on there. Pretty sure he has a mini mill too. A lot of different things, and a lot of different projects on there. And you know, just search the net and you'll find all kinds of things out there. But that's kind of, these books here are ones that I truly do like and that have absolutely helped me out. And I can't say it enough. Make this your first book, especially if you're, you know, learning this on your own. This has a lot of information in it, even though it's so thin. This has more practical, useful information in it for you as a hobbyist than this does. A lot of the information that's in this, that you're going to need in this, that thread data and stuff like that, can be found on the internet. I do like to have it in book form like this, just because I would rather look at a book than a screen. But that's just me. I mean, even when, hell, when I go to the library, I miss the card catalogs with those little drawers and you had to look up the numbers. I miss those. I can use those better than I can the computer. Probably a lot of you don't even know what those card catalogs are anymore. Actually, probably a lot of you have them in your shop because the whole library's got rid of them and you're using them for tool storage. So, anyway. So that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys kind of enjoyed it. I know it was a lot of talking, probably a lot of boring, but hope you guys did enjoy it and gives you some direction for some good information and some books for you guys. And so I'm going to think up some projects upcoming here, and hopefully we can get to those, and we'll see you on the next video.